Hi, everybody. This is Cindy Kennedy, and you are listening to another episode of Living with Lyme. And this is brought to you in part by Pursue Wellness, which is an integrative practice of myself and Kara, who is a registered dietitian. And together we really get to the root cause of what's bothering you. And there are a lot of issues that are out there that really need a root cause address. So come listen to us, come have a free consult call, www.pursuewellness.us. You can find us there. Today, we are going to be talking to Jeff Thurston, and he is a part owner of Master Supplements Company, which is a gut health company, and we're going to learn a lot about probiotics and things that really nourish the gut today. His background is as a microbiologist and a virologist, and he and his partner have been growing bacteria for a number of years, so we're going to hear a lot more about that. Jeff is really good about educating. He's educated myself. He has educated many, many practitioners on the role of probiotics. He is also a very big supporter and a sponsor of Living with Lyme. So we can thank him for all of this great information I'm able to get out. So I want to give a big hello to Mr. Jeff Thurston. How are you?
I am fine. After a lovely weekend of summer weather, we're good to go.
I know. We were talking beforehand. You were doing a lot of yard work.
Yeah. It's the yards never stop growing. You know, weeds keep coming up. The grass is growing. I also raise honeybees, so I have to work with those little guys, and it's just always busy living in the country.
Oh, and you're an apiary.
Yes, well, not huge, but you know, we just have 5 hives that we just play with, and
oh my God, that's so cool.
Yeah, I don't do it for the honey. I do it for the bees. Just, you know, see if I can, you know, raise bees and get more bees to be around and do those things.
Right, because
the side benefit is you do get honey.
You do, okay. But there's a loss of honeybees, right? We've been dwindling in terms of their counts.
Yes, and there's not a lot of consensus as to the exact cause, but whatever it is, it's hive collapse. It can be from glyphosate, it can be from pesticides, it can be from EMS, it can be from a lot of different things. But to me, they're sort of an indicator, the canary in the coal mine, you know, as to what's going on with the health of the planet. Yeah,
you know, it was funny because I was talking to someone after driving to their home, and I was kind of dive bombed by some birds that, you know, in my day, birds flew in the sky. They don't just kind of dodge across the street. And they brought up the idea about the environment and that they're not as healthy as they used to be. I never thought of that. That's kind of odd. Well, let's get to all this great information. Tell me, first of all, who is Master Supplements?
Well, we're just, my partner and I, Randy Perubkin, and I started this company. Our first trade show was in August of 2003. So we've been around for a while, and knowing bacteria, knowing how they grow, how they work, how they need to be handled, we set out to create a probiotic that was as good as there could possibly be made. And well, that success is depending upon how people perceive us, you know, or the people who've been taking it. But I can say this, that's the first doctors that we signed up at the very first conference are still customers today. So we must have done something right.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. I love your products. We have them here. I recommend them to my patients, and I know that there's a variety of them. It's not just standard probiotics. So we're going to learn more about what those counts are and what they're for and all that kind of stuff. Let's go back in time. I'm learning, and you know about that there's a difference in, you know, delivering babies. We talk about, you know, being, coming into the environment and developing our microbiome has a lot to do with the way we were born. Can you explain that?
Well, actually, I like to put it this way. The very first gift we get from our moms is bacteria. Then we get a whack on the fanny from the doctor, and life begins.
I don't think they do that anymore. I practiced labor and delivery for a while. We didn't hit them anymore.
Well, that was my upbringing, if you will.
Yeah, back in the day when they didn't call the department, right, of social service, when your mother gave you a little clung on the back of the head.
Yeah. So anyway, when babies come through the birth canal, they get bacteria, and it's all over their skin, their mouth, their ears, their eyes. Every orifice is filled with bacteria. And if you look at the skin, the bacteria on the skin of a baby born vaginally, it's almost majority of it, 90% is lactobacillus. A C-section baby is less than 10%. And just those extremes immediately point out there's a huge difference between the way Mother Nature intended and the advances of science, if you will. But babies get those bacteria, and obviously they're swallowing them, breathing, and then breastfeeding. Babies get, more bacteria. But there's an interesting component to human breast milk, and it's called the human milk oligosaccharide. It's just many sugars. And it is indigestible by a human being. So why would that be in breast milk? Well, it's there to feed the bacteria that mom just gave the baby. And you know what is the largest contributor to determining what the composition of that human milk oligosaccharide is in mom? The bacteria in mom. So the bacteria have actually used the birth process and mother's milk to feed their progeny, which are basically the bacteria in the gut of that infant. So Dr. Anne-Marie Fine, who has graciously agreed to speak for us on an Autism Hope Alliance Summit, wrote an interesting piece about the gut-brain-skin connection and how a lot of issues are with children are skin-related issues as well. And she said that probiotics in the last trimester and the first 6 months of life in mother is so important to the health of the baby.
Especially
so
if
Mother
they're
Nature,
right?
Yeah,
You're saying, yeah.
Yeah, because you're getting all those natural components. You're getting the proper food, if you will, for the bacteria. And we don't look at bacteria the way we should. We've been taught kill it, kill it, kill it. You see there's these big things on the morning talk shows about well, we examined a coffee maker and we found E. coli in the coffee maker, and I would go, I'd be absolutely shocked if you didn't find it there. They're ubiquitous. So we don't need to kill them all, but there is the Jeffrey Dahmer of E. coli, the one bad guy that gets all the press, but the most of the good guys don't get any kind of credit for being just there, benign or beneficial.
Well, it's scary. We grew up in an environment that actually, you know what? We were talking about this. My environment was not too, my mom wasn't crazy about washing hands and, come here, use hand sanitizer. There was no such thing. There was Ivory soap, basically. And, my granddaughter, who's 5 now, she's taught all the time. I mean, yes, colds, flus, GI bugs, those kind of things are obviously things you want to protect yourself from, but we used to get dirty, and kids don't get dirty anymore.
And therein lies, to me, part of some of the issues. So that baby that just got all those bacteria from mom and everything else finally comes home and crawls around on the floor, and guess what? It gets more bacteria. The dog comes over and licks the baby. The dog gives the baby some more bacteria. The baby's immune system now starts to learn how to handle these different issues. And if you're exposed to it a little bit at a time, then your body's immunity starts to take over and take control. So when you do get a little larger dose, your body can handle it. When you start really, trying to keep everything around you sterile, when you do come across that thing, your body doesn't know how to deal with it, and it can be significantly more difficult for you.
Right. If you think about that, that's, a small amount is good, and it gives your body time to adjust. And as time progresses, if there's more, your body already recognizes it. It's not so much of an invasion, right?
Right. My mother used to say, if a little boy hasn't eaten a peck of dirt by the time he's 40, he's not normal. And it's just kind of true. You're out there people that work in the garden, they're
Right.
being exposed to bacteria all the time, soil bacteria. There's a whole category of probiotics in stores now called soil bacteria. We're not in that business. We're in the business of bacteria that are, of human origin versus of soil origin, but that doesn't mean that they both aren't good for you. You know,
Right.
they work in different ways, and so to
Right.
me, it's all about getting your immune system to function at peak. And there are two immune systems, really.
Right. Oh, go ahead. Tell us.
Well, there's the the innate and the acquired. You know, so you have two different immune systems, and in some cases, when you get challenged with a pathogen of sorts, and only one of those immune systems gets to work, then you're still not really immune yet. You need to have both immunities working. So one is working through more internal, and the other one is a little just different in how it handles things. And you can
Right.
look at probiotic bacteria, and some will work on one side or the other, depending upon the organism.
Okay. Okay. Well, tell us, the shelves at your local pharmacy, your health food store, wherever, there's ample types of probiotics, and they're also labeled with different strains. Tell us more about the the benefits. Well, actually, I don't want to hear about the benefits yet. We're going to get to that. I want to know about what the quality. How do you determine a quality? I mean, certainly anybody listening to this can just go on to mastersupplements.com and go ahead and order it, or they can talk to your people there who are very, very informative and very helpful. But if someone is just learning about probiotics, let's teach them what are the quality factors that you have to think about or learn about before you purchase something.
I like to paint pictures with stories. So let's just say you moved to New York City, you bought an apartment, and you find that you are in need of a plumber. And you say to your friends, who's the best plumber? And they say, Bill Smith.
I bet you there's a Bill Smith, the plumber, in New York City.
I'll bet there's a lot of Bill Smiths, the plumbers in New York City, and not all of them are good. So how do you know which one is the good one, right? Now, if somebody said William Farquhar Smith III, you know exactly which Bill Smith to call. So when you're dealing with bacteria, it's much the same. You can see Lactobacillus acidophilus, right? Well, there's 200 different kinds of acidophilus. Some can produce certain cytokines, some can produce antimicrobial things, some can degrade oxalates, some can do this, some can do that, but not all of them can do those things. So you need to add then your strain qualifier. So you would see Lactobacillus acidophilus, and very common one is NCFM, which is then the strain, which identifies the organism, which makes it that specific organism. If you don't see that on the label, you really don't know what you're getting. That NCFM strain is an expensive strain, right? But it's very effective. So if you don't see it, you could be getting an acidophilus that's really quite cheap and really quite ineffective and doesn't really do all the things that you're looking for it to do. So you need to see that qualifier on the end of that. And then when you're looking at a probiotic, you want to see that strain is guaranteed a certain count. Now, you'll see oftentimes 10 billion CFU. CFU just stands for colony forming units. So if you put it on a petri dish and it forms there's a colony grows, that could be started by 1 or 1,000 organisms. It's just telling you there's this many colonies that are being formed. So now you can say, okay, now we have Lactobacillus acidophilus, NCFM, 10 billion CFU, guaranteed at manufacture. Well, that just means I put them in the bottle. That doesn't mean they're alive 2 days later. So you want to see guaranteed through expiration. So now you've gone from just looking at a generic label that just says acidophilus with no count guaranteed for that. Now you've gone to the point where you're looking at the exact organism, exactly how many, and it's guaranteed through expiration. Now you're looking at a probiotic that's probably going to have some benefit to you, and you can look up the benefits of that particular strain of acidophilus. It's very easy. Just Google it. All you have to do is probably just Google NCFM, and you'll find hundreds, literally hundreds of scientific papers talking about that particular organism. Now, that happens to be a trademark. So you have to look at things kind of differently. It's a trademark that's owned by a different company. We can buy it, but we can't call it that. So you go one step further, and this is getting into the people who are really conscientious and really want to know. There's a number called the American Type Culture Collection, where all bacteria are kept in a repository in liquid nitrogen, so that you can always go back to that original organism. And so that gives it a number, and that for that is this ATTCSD5221. For that, I mean, so you say you can, and then that will give you the genetics. I mean, if you really want to drill down, you can really go, but you really want to find a company that understands this stuff. And then when you look at their label and it says, you know, Lactobacillus Acidophilus, we call it LA1 because we can't say NCFM. Boom, there it is. And we can reference the same item number, American Type Culture Collection number. So you can really, if you really want to, you can really drill down and find a quality probiotic. And we're certainly not the only ones out there, but we are one of the ones that's out there.
Right. And one of the things you taught me is it really should be in a glass bottle.
Oh, sure. You know, these bacteria, when you grow them in this 1,000-gallon fermenter. So what you do is you spin them down, get rid of most of the liquid, and you're left with this slurry. You wash it, and then you drop these little beads into liquid nitrogen. So they're immediately frozen. Then you put them in a machine that takes all the water out of them. So that's what's called freeze-dried bacteria. Believe it or not, they're still alive. You know, I mean, it's really, imagine that something has gone through that kind of, you know, liquid nitrogen and have all the water removed and it's still alive. But anyway, so they're very fragile organisms, and it's not the heat that gets them, it's the moisture, because they're freeze-dried. And once you get a little bit of water in there, you start getting biological activity. The bacteria are going to die in a bottle, and it'd be done. Now, most people don't realize it, but under pressure, water can get into a plastic bottle. So we're all familiar with taking an ice cold glass of water or lemonade and putting on a table outside in the summertime, and it just collects water. There's a lot of pressure if it's cold inside the bottle and humid outside for water to go in. It can be as much as 3,000 pounds per square inch. And so that can get into a plastic bottle, and all of a sudden you start to, you know, the bacteria start to degrade. So a glass bottle is absolutely critical. Drying it is critical. We've had product that we shipped to like a customer in India, and it came back 4 months later undeliverable, and we tested it, and we're still better than 90% of the bacteria are still there after all that time just kicking around in the who knows where, you know, the belly of a ship or in a hot warehouse somewhere. So yes, glass is really important, and if they're refrigerated at the store level, that's even better. So, you know, you can really find a quality probiotic, but again, another really important thing is they got to get through the stomach.
I was just thinking about that because yes, if it breaks down, you really want to feed the small intestine and the large intestine. So how does it not just dissolve and get taken up in an area that you really aren't finding the benefit?
Well, you have to remember, stomach acid is a barrier to entry. There's bacteria in the air. We're both breathing it right now. It's getting in our saliva and we're swallowing it. Do we really think that all those bacteria are making it to our, you know, to our small intestine? No, because stomach acid kills them. I mean, even some papers that I saw from a great yogurt company said that we lose 99.9% going through the stomach acid.
That doesn't sound so effective, does it?
That doesn't. You know, now you still get some benefit from dead bacteria. You know, you get some benefit, like in yogurt, from some of the metabolites that are already there in the yogurt, or for kefir or kombucha or whatever fermented foods you eat. But the chances of bacteria making it through your stomach are really rather slim. The pH of the stomach is generally in the area of 1.6 to 3, which is very acidic. Not quite as acidic as a Coca-Cola, but still very acidic.
I've heard that story before.
Yeah. So you got to get.
What do you do? What do you do to protect that? What do you change?
There's a number of things you can do, but this was the premise that we used to start our company. We knew from just general chemistry and things of that sort that there's a component of seaweed called sodium alginate that is a unique chemical, if you will, organic chemical, that in a low pH it's converted to alginic acid, and that's purely a function of pH, the acidity in the environment. So at a pH of around 4, it's converted to alginic acid. And so that actually forms a shell in the stomach and protects the bacteria in the stomach. It comes back out of the stomach, the pH goes back up to, so, it can go anywhere from 5.8 to 6.2 or 3, and it goes back to sodium alginate. So you've taken the bacteria, you've dropped them into the acid, the shell forms to protect them, comes out, goes back to sodium alginate, and now you have all your bacteria actually in their own little, like a gel matrix that kind of delivers them and carries them through past all the other bad guys and gets them to where they need to go.
Do they attach onto something within the small intestine?
Yeah, well, again, let's go back to that Lactobacillus Acidophilus. I can show you pictures of 2 different Lactobacillus Acidophilus. One has a fuzzy exterior and the other one doesn't. Well, the one that's smooth, it's smooth like a hot dog and goes through about just the same speed, right through. The one with the fuzzy exterior has the ability to adhere to epithelial cells. So when you're looking at it, you're looking at an organism that, is got all these benefits that you can see, but also has the ability to stick around. Now, they're not going to stick around very long. When they adhere to an epithelial cell, it's going to grow off to the end and slough off in about 3 or 4 days. So they're going to work for 3 or 4 days and kind of get things back to normal. And you have to remember, probiotics are like the police. If there's a riot, you don't send in 10 policemen for every rioter. You just send in enough to get everything under control. Well, that's what bacteria are doing, probiotic bacteria. So they're, you get them through the stomach, and then you got to wake them up.
I see. So, cellular, if we think about the cells, we think about changes in our microbiome within our intestine. We think about a lot of people, especially with Lyme, being on a lot of antibiotics. We think about people who have, say they get a gastroenteritis from either viral or bacterial or whatever, and you think, okay, yes, we've got to replenish what has been depleted. How is that doing that?
I'm sorry, you have to repeat that.
I just lost audio for a second.
Okay. You're thinking about people who are on a lot of antibiotics because they have Lyme disease, people who may have gotten a gastroenteritis from either a viral or a bacterial issue. And we're thinking, oh my goodness, we're really depleting the good guys. We got bad guys that are going to take over. How do we replenish? What is happening when we take our probiotics to replenish the good guys?
Well, one of the things again, I look at things in a very different way than a lot of other people. I'm not like all the other children, if you will.
Was your mother okay with that?
Yeah, she was. So was my family, actually. You can get sick from 10 bacteria in a bad clam. All right. And you can get really sick for a number of days, and it can go beyond that even. As few as 10, right? But that's because they have a very rapid rate of growth. So if they're doubling every 17 minutes, and Lactobacillus doubles every 80 minutes, in 6 hours, you would, if under ideal conditions, you would have 250,000 bad guys and only 32 good guys, each starting from 1 at the same point in time under ideal conditions. So when you're looking at taking a probiotic, that's why you need such large numbers, because they can't compete with the growth rate of the indigenous bacteria that are starting to take over. So what probiotic bacteria typically produce lactic acid. Lactic acid creates an environment sometimes that other pathogens just don't enjoy or can't function in and around. They also produce antimicrobial substances. They have the ability to compete in growth and places and things of that sort. So there's a lot of things going on when you're looking at probiotics and how you can find a good one. But so if you're looking at many of your Lyme patients, some of the docs that I know will say you need up to 200 billion CFU per day.
That's a lot.
That's a lot, right?
But is that true? Is that how much you actually need?
Well, because they're giving some doctors are using very heavy antibiotic cocktails, if you will. to go after Lyme and co-infections. And so you have to then, fight strength with strength, if you will. So when you start knocking down a lot of bacteria, you've got to put a lot of other good bacteria back to take the space. Because you and I can't occupy the same space at the same time. And that goes for bacteria too. So if you can get enough of the good guys down there, the bad guys got nowhere to go. So that's the reason for such large numbers. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that's the way everybody has to function, but when they're using a lot of antibiotics, that's the kind of numbers that they're looking at. Now, for us, we guarantee our counts through expiration, but we also publish third-party lab tests online by lot number, so you can go and see what it was when it was made. So that capsule that says 30 billion CFU, a particular lot might be 45 billion. Well, that's a huge difference when you're looking to take 200 billion a day. You think that's 1 or 2 less capsules a day, which is actually saving a little bit of money. Well, I think we're still the only company that's been doing that.
So is there a special time you should take your probiotic? I think most people know, but if they don't, you never take it alongside of your antibiotic. But are probiotics better on an empty stomach?
Well, I think that with food, away from food, empty stomach, full stomach is, the argument there is, some people will say if you take it with food, the food is buffering your stomach acid, so you're not going to get such significant losses. Other people will say, well, once you eat food, your stomach produces more stomach acid, so it's more harmful to the bacteria, so you're going to get less through your stomach. The way we do it was not worrying about stomach acid because of the sodium alginate. To me, it doesn't matter when you take it. It's when you're going to remember to do it. My personal preference is at bedtime.
Okay.
Right before I go to sleep, because my body slows down. The bacteria have a greater opportunity to, work at a slower pace. There's no stresses going on. And Lyme patients are all stressed, and stress is one of the hardest things on your gut. And so, again, if you can, help yourself out a little bit by taking it at bedtime, you should have 6 to 8 hours, hopefully, of uninterrupted bacteria working.
So they work the night shift. That's the way we should look at it.
That's my preference. Other people prefer to take it first thing in the morning, or they take their antibiotic in the morning and then they wait a couple hours, they take it, and then they take another antibiotic, they wait a couple hours and take another one.
Got it.
Whatever you want.
Okay. How much can you take all at once?
Well, let's just look at numbers. All right.
All right.
There's 100 trillion bacteria in your gut. If you took an entire bottle of Theralac, for instance, it might have 1 trillion in the entire bottle, which is still only 1% of the bacteria in your gut. Yes, it would be, it would loosen you up significantly, but it certainly wouldn't be lethal. But people can, I know people who take 4 at a time. I know some people who just take 1 every 2 weeks.
So I usually say to people, when we're in an acute situation, that's when we really need to, and I like, you say stories. Here's my story. You tell me if you like the story. I talk about your bacteria, the whole microbiome, as a sandbox, and everybody should be playing appropriately and nicely and sharing in the sandbox. But if you get a bully or two and the sand's flying, we're going to lose sand out of the sandbox. It's going to be less for the good kids to be playing with. And so it's real important to patrol these bullies and get them under control so they become nice kids playing in the sandbox. How do you like that?
I like that one.
I'm going to patent
Everybody's got to
one.
play in this.
I'm going to patent that one. No one can use that one.
No, you're right. And that's generally the role of probiotics, is that, to go in there and try to get things under control and calm things down. They're not curative in any way, manner, shape, or form. They're an assist.
Okay.
They're just helping you help yourself is really.
So what bothers me is that I have people that have never had a gut issue and have never taken any probiotics, is that just somebody that just doesn't need them?
No, I would, we're all so very, very different. I like to say we're a function of what mothers ate a week before we were born. I mean, you could, if mom's eating cheeseburgers and French fries, or another one's eating organic salads, they're going to be very different microflora in their gut. Some of those people that have no gut issues probably eat better than other people. They have probably a more alkaline diet. Acidity is probably one of the things that very few people talk about, but a lemon, for instance, has a pH of around 10. It's up there with baking soda. Very alkaline food. Coca-Cola has a pH of about 1.6, which is more than stomach acid.
Yeah.
And we're not even talking the ingredients. We're not talking the sugar and everything else that's in there. We're talking about just plain old pH. And there's a little group of compounds in the gut that are called short chain fatty acids, and at the proper pH, your body can convert the lactate that's produced by these probiotic bacteria into butyrate, which is one of the more beneficial short chain fatty acids for human health. But if the pH is too low, it doesn't get converted. So you don't get that health benefit for your colon if your pH is way too low. And so you can raise your pH simply by eating watermelon, cantaloupe, lemons, kale, all kinds of leafy green vegetables, not steak and Coca-Cola and French fries.
Right. There are some people that say, well, if I've had a really, like, vacation, let's talk vacation. Vacation is fun and sometimes bad food and a lot of things that you wouldn't necessarily eat, or, a few extra gin and tonics or Mai Tais or all of these, things that are really look great with the umbrellas and the fruit and all that. Is that a really good time to say, hey, you know what? I really ought to make sure the kids are playing good in the sandbox?
Yeah, that's actually the best time, but everything in moderation, including moderation. So, you can enjoy your vacation. I know a lot of people that, if you have an issue with dairy, you're not going to eat an ice cream cone because you don't want to feel badly. But yeah, all right, maybe we're walking down the boardwalk and there's a guy selling cheeseburgers, so you walk in and you have a cheeseburger, and that's not your normal food. It can upset you. You can feel pretty poorly. Yeah, a good idea to take a probiotic at that time. But there's another area we haven't even talked about. Those are enzymes.
Oh, okay.
Because
I'm big with enzymes. I get my patients on enzymes because, for some particular reason, and there's a lot of reasons for it, whether their history, they've been on proton pump inhibitors, they end up not producing enough of that acid in their stomach for digestion. And you need that acid in the stomach to stimulate the pancreas to produce those digestive enzymes to start breaking down the food so that the nutrition is available. Otherwise, it's flying through you.
Yeah.
How do you like that? Have I been studying?
Have you been studying? That's a good.
Well,
but like, if you were to take Acidophilus and an apple, you can't grow Acidophilus in an apple unless you treat the apple with the enzyme pectinase. Then you can grow Acidophilus in an apple. So the enzymes are equally as important as are the probiotics, because actually the most important thing you can do for your health is your diet. Above everything else, it's your diet. It's what you put into your body. And you can help that by taking enzymes, especially when we get older. A lot of us, lose maybe 2 to 3% of our ability to produce enzymes every year after the age of 25. So when you get to be my age, a lot of enzymatic activity has kind of gone by the wayside. So an enzyme can be very beneficial at that point to help you break down your meal. And you've got 4 basic groups of enzymes. You've got ones that digest fats, one that digest fibers, one that digest proteins, and one to digest carbohydrates. but you want to make sure that your enzymes are balanced. The least expensive group of enzymes is the ones that break down carbohydrates. And the most expensive are the ones that break down fats. If you make your enzyme strictly based upon the price you can sell it for, you're going to put many more of the carbohydrate digesting enzymes in that formula, which then in turn will turn the meal glycemic in a very quick hurry because it's taking all those carbs and turning them into sugars very quickly. So you want to have one that's really nicely balanced. It's got a little more of the more expensive stuff in it, like the lipase. And then you have two different sources. You know, in our case, no pigs were harmed in the making of this product. The animal-based ones, you know, like pig pancreas and things of that sort, you know, and some people are opposed to, you know, eating animals in any way, manner, shape, or form. But
well, where do you get these enzymes from then? If it's
plants.
From plants?
Yeah, so bromelain comes from the stem of a pineapple. Papain comes from papaya. You know, enzymes too are destroyed by heat. So when you have a food stuff that you cook, you destroy the enzyme. So again, an enzyme can help if you're cooking your broccoli and your kale and your peas and your beans, whatever. You're cooking them too much, then you're destroying the enzymes, and now you can use some fiber digesting enzymes to help, you know, break that down. So we look at children, and we have a prebiotic fiber product, and we added some enzymes to it because a lot of these children with autism have very restrictive diets. And it's not restrictive by what the doctors told them to take. They'll just only eat chicken nuggets or only eat French fries. And so they can use some help in with getting some fiber. Now, fiber is prebiotic. Fiber really doesn't do much for the human being except create some bulk in the stool.
As well as help with your blood sugar level, you know, your glycemic portion. You know, we all our diabetics, we really need to have them concentrate on the amount of fiber they're getting, because otherwise, you know, the amount of blood sugar can rise quicker, you know, etc. Before I forget, because I will forget really quickly, what is it, a plant source where we get the lipase to break down the fats?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Because
they all are. It's like our product's vegan.
Vegan. Okay. That's important to know. People really, you know, like that. They want wheat-free, soy-free,
yeah.
You know, all that kind of good stuff. But you know, people need to know, and I ask, and it's, you know, all this bathroom talk, we just have to get past it. But if you're passing a bowel movement and it's floating, that means it's very fatty, and that means you're not digesting your fats. So in case anybody wants to know that great, important bathroom information, you can share that. That's not patented. You can share that, and you can talk to people, because all of a sudden people will say, really? I didn't know that. And then, you know, you can go backwards with that and find out, oh, maybe I do need some digestive enzymes. And that's where you guys can come in, and they can, you know, have a trial for themselves. And then if they're sinking, well, we got something real important for them to do.
Right. And when we're talking, you know, fibers too, there's two kinds of fiber.
Okay, go ahead.
Soluble fiber and insoluble fiber.
Mm-hmm.
The insoluble fiber is the bulk in your stool. It kind of helps clean things out, and like a Brillo pad going through and scrubbing. The other is the soluble fiber, and that feeds the bacteria in your gut. So that's what the enzymes help separate one from the other. That's what those fiber digesting enzymes will do. They'll separate one from the other. So now you can eat that carrot, and you can get the soluble fiber out, which is going to feed certain groups of bacteria, and they each eat different things. So that's why you need to have a greater variety of prebiotic foods to get a greater biodiversity in your microbiome. So all these things all fit together in one big giant puzzle. It's like the way Mother Nature we started this conversation with Mother Nature creating this marvelous system for giving babies a good, healthy gut. And now we're talking about the same thing, how Mother Nature's providing all these foods for us, and not Franken foods, kind of things, and not laced with chemical kind of foods, and a lot of people can't afford organic, but truly that is the best way to go. But you need to eat a lot of fiber, and probably more fiber than even the old USDA recommendations of 25 grams a day. It should be more in the 30 to 35, in my opinion. I've found some marvelous companies that make cold pressed organic juices. And to me, that's made such a huge difference. I take probiotics all the time, but when I started drinking some of these cold pressed organic juices, it changed my body. I mean, my weight started to come off, and I'm not saying it's a diet thing, but for me, it worked. And we're all very different. And then you see in a lot of products out there now, you see a lot of prebiotics, or they're calling them synbiotics, or they're calling them all different kinds of things. And what they're doing is just putting some, in some cases, some window dressing on a product by saying that we have a prebiotic in there too. They don't understand that you need 3 grams of like fructooligosaccharides, FOS. You need 3 grams of it to be effective. When you can't put 3 grams in a 500 milligram capsule, there's just no room. It's like, how much stuff can you put in a 5-pound sack?
5 pounds.
So, yeah, that's exactly right. You can't put any more than that in there. And so you have 500 milligrams, and if you want to put bacteria in there, so it's a little bit beneficial, but you have to be careful because each of these prebiotic fibers feeds different things. So for me, and this is just me individually, I can't tolerate any isolated FOS. I can get it in an onion or a garlic or a tomato or asparagus, because I call those, that goes along with that, unidentified nutrient factors. They go along with the FOS when you eat it in food, but when you isolate it, I feel like a basketball. I mean, it's like they could dribble me down the street.
You get real bloated?
Oh yes. I mean, it's just, to me, it's incredible what a small amount. I had it in some stevia once. I bought a little stevia, put it in my coffee, and the next day, wow, it just was horrible. And I looked at the label, and they put some FOS in there.
All right.
I've known that I can't tolerate that.
All right. So tell us, what is going on in your body that is creating that amount of gas buildup that causes the bloating? What is chemically, physiologically going on that causes that for some people? Because there are people who I put on some probiotics and they just get this, and then they're like, well, wait a minute, I don't want to take that if I'm going to feel like that. So I usually say, okay, well, let's give it a day or two, and then we break it up. We try to spread it out. So anyways, tell us first what caused the basketball.
Well, this is going to be a little technical here. We're talking molecular weights. FOS is a very low molecular weight. It's a number of fructose units gang together in a little tiny chain. It can feed the gas-producing bacteria, the ones that produce methane and hydrogen sulfide and other different bacteria. Then your next sort of major step up goes to inulin. And you have 2 different kinds of inulin. At the lower end of the molecular weight chain is you have chicory. At the higher end, you have Jerusalem artichoke. So depending upon the source of the inulin, the higher the molecular weight, the more specific the prebiotic is going to be for different bacteria. And then you can get up to partially hydrolyzed guar gum, which is like 20,000 versus 1,000. So it's much more specific to feeding, say, for instance, bifidobacteria in your colon. So there's a lot of differences in your different fibers, and it depends on what they are feeding. Now, remember, I have different bacteria than you do because of what my mother ate, and now my body changes a little bit, but generally you want to go back to your original, what your body recognizes as safe. So I have a little different composition than other people, and if I feed those gas producers FOS, boom, I go. Now, on some of your patients, when you give them a good, strong probiotic, now you can get a different situation. You can get some die-off. So the good guys will go down there and they'll displace the bad guys, and just like, let me put it in indelicately, roadkill. It's there. It doesn't just come off the road by itself. it's got to be, you got to pass through. But in the meantime, it's decaying, and it can produce some gas and some indigestion and maybe even headaches. Some people will get some die-off from a strong probiotic.
Is that a necessary evil?
Well, it means it's working. So, like in our company's case, we give you 3 choices. Tough it out, or back off and take one, wait a couple of days, take another, wait a few more days, take another, and then start to slow that interval down. And the third is send it back and we'll give you your money back. That's the third choice. If it's working, you want it to work. It's how much can you tolerate it in the interim. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that's for all people. Our product is not all things for all people, and nobody's is.
Right. But do people typically ride it out a little bit, slow the amount that they're taking and then pretty much do better?
Yeah, that's the best result, because in 2 or 3 days you start saying, oh, okay. If you stretch it out every time you take it, if you wait 2 days, you allow some of those other bacteria to come back a little bit, and then it goes again. But eventually you can do it that way. But riding it out for 2 or 3 days, and if after 2 or 3 days you're still really terribly uncomfortable, stop.
Well, what do people do at that point? If they really know they need a probiotic, is it that they reduce the count?
Yeah, that's where I would first go. I would look to reduce the count. Instead of taking a 30 billion or a 50 billion, you might try one that's 10. But also you would look at the organisms that are in the model. We started talking about, that my partner and I have been growing bacteria forever. We also understand that not all of them get along, and so there's situations where there's some incompatibilities in organisms inside the capsule. We spend a lot of time in our lab making sure that everything is compatible. So you won't find in our products Lactobacillus plantarum and bifidobacteria together, because we know they don't grow well together. So we purposely separate products based upon compatibilities.
So with children, what type of formulation do you have for children? Because, younger kids, especially kids who are autistic and, have difficulty taking something. Is it in a powder form or, I know it's not liquid, but.
Yeah, we have one that's called a granular.
Oh, yes. Yes.
So it really is the exact same formula Sterolac without the capsule and the flow agent that you use to fill the capsule. So it's exactly the same formula. You can use a little smaller amount for children. Best if you mix it in applesauce. It does not mix well with water, because that sodium alginate that's in there to protect it to get through the stomach is like, if you put it on a spoon and you put a drop of water on it, it's worse than peanut butter to get off. It gets that thick.
Oh,
so
I see.
Put it in a drink.
Okay.
So you mix it with applesauce or
pudding,
yogurt, or pudding,
yogurt,
or you can sprinkle it on ice cream. I mean, I'm not recommending people eat ice cream, but you can sprinkle it on ice cream.
Oh, that's just as
what
bad.
The kids will eat.
That's just as bad as sprinkle it in your Coke or on your cheeseburger.
Right. But some children, again, that's all they'll eat.
Right.
And so if that's the way you have to do it, that's the way you have to do it.
Right. We do have a couple of youngsters that are having difficulty, and my daughter being the dietitian, she's working with the moms and coming up with some unique ways to get these children to eat things that, look a little bit better or taste a little bit better. But it is true. I've seen YouTube videos on some of these kids who parents are like, all right, that's it. There's going to be no more chicken fingers. There's going to be no more French fries. And we are going to work on this. And I do remember this one with this young girl, and she was flinging the plates all over the place. She was not going to eat. And then she started to get hungry. And so she started to eat. And then within a period of time, it didn't seem like it was more than a few weeks, she actually started to become more verbal. And you got it. That is just, to me, a powerful message about the importance of your nutrition. And you just, you know, I mean, some families have just gotten in the wrong rut, and the convenience of, you know, picking up something on the way home and whatever. I mean, that doesn't mean that people can't, but they have to make better choices. You know, picking up maybe a rotisserie chicken and then making chicken salad, or even just eating it like that with some nice greens and maybe some tomatoes and
Or a
cucumbers.
wrap. Yeah, a little lettuce wrap.
Okay, a lettuce wrap. Yep.
You know,
Yep.
because some kid, you know, yeah, it's what we have to do is we have to get our children to eat better. Um, I have some numbers that just I've been finding on websites that are like NIH and things of that sort. 1 in 150 kids is getting pediatric cancer. 1 in 36 is getting some sort of neurological issue. We'll call it autism, whatever you want to call it. And 1 in 5 has allergies. These are horrible numbers, horrible, that we have. They should be 1 in 10,000, not 1 in 150, 36, or 5. And to me, it's the convenience factor. It's so many different things that we're looking at, you know. And moms are stressed, dads are stressed. Whether it's Lyme, whether it's autism, no matter what it is, when you have a sick child, there's a lot of stress, and you just want to make it go away as fast as you can. And sometimes, all right, a chicken finger is better than having to deal with the screaming and the crying and everything else. And it's hard. I mean, been there, done that, and it's not easy. And
Right.
I don't claim to say that everybody should be able to be able to do everything, but
Right.
I also like to tell moms and dads that they also need to take care of their health.
Exactly.
Because if mom goes down just a little bit and, you know, is a little bit irritable and cranky or whatever, and the baby's going to pick up on that, the child's going to pick up on that, and they're going to go down at the same time. Whereas if you can start to float the boats, everybody's going to come up just a little bit. And
Right.
it's a whole family thing.
It is.
You know?
It
And
is.
so if you can make a smoothie and you can put some probiotic in that smoothie and everybody drink a little of that smoothie, parents have a tendency to take everything they make and give it to their kids because that's their job. And I find no fault with that whatsoever. But if you can find ways to share it a little bit, then maybe everybody can be a little bit better off. To me, it's unconscionable what we're doing. And
Right. Right. I was at the Dr. Seuss Museum the other day, and you know, that goes back to the development and the family. Dr. I think his last name was Geisel, and they had all the pictures of probably from the 50s and the early 60s and whatnot. You did not find one person overweight within that group. Everybody, because there wasn't the convenience of these big chains and fast food and things like that. You know, people were home, they baked their bread, and you know, they had good food. And now, and I noticed this about 10 or 15 years ago, and it, you know, maybe it was I wasn't paying attention before that, but we were at the beach, and I'm looking around. And it's not so much just the parents that really need to lose a few, but these children are getting heavier. And I think that is where the immune system is going awry, and they're not able to fight off. I mean, I've been told that we all have some cancer cells or whatnot that our body is always attacking and getting rid of. But and we know that a good 70% of our immune system comes from the gut. It's so important to feed that gut the good bacteria to keep everybody happy so that the immune system can stay up to snuff and fight these things off.
Yep, that's absolutely critical. And it starts with diet.
It does.
Absolutely starts there.
It does. You know,
and the research on the microbiome is just really beginning. You remember the old phones where you had to crank and pick the thing up and say, Hazel, can you patch me through to Judy? You know,
right. And she would take the switchboard thing.
Yeah, right. That's where we are now with the microbiome.
Really?
You know, and it won't be long before we're up to, you know, cell phones like the Dick Tracy cell phones on our wrists. It won't be
Really?
that long, but we're just, I mean, the interactions between one group of bacteria with another, we don't understand. We're not down there studying it. I mean, it's really, you can do it in a petri dish, or you can do it in a beaker in a lab. You can give somebody a stool analysis, and you give them some food, and then you come back 2 weeks later. But what happened in that 2 weeks? Did they drink alcohol? Did they eat organic food? Did they eat fast food? Did they take a probiotic? Did they take I mean, all those different things are going to have a different result. So it's really hard to understand what's going on at any given point in time in the microbiome. I have heard about a little capsule you can swallow now that's got a little almost like a microbiology lab in it. They're supposed to be able to follow things through a little bit, but pH is important. You know, what are you eating to keep your pH at the right level? What prebiotics are you eating? You know, what probiotics are you taking? All these things, you know,
Right.
change from day to day.
Right, right. You know, it's a snapshot. Sometimes what we're getting for testing is just a snapshot. Do you recommend that people take a probiotic, you know, every day or several times a week? Do we think about taking higher dosing of probiotics when we're not well? Do we then cut back? What are your thoughts on that?
I think that everybody should look at themselves and kind of get that sense for themselves. A couple of things I'll make a note of. Number one is rotation. You don't grow tomatoes in the same soil every year. So you want to rotate between different bacteria. It doesn't need to mean between different companies, but that's an excellent way of doing it as well. You know, so you have that rotation that makes a difference. When you are in desperate need of probiotics, you should take more. And typically when people start looking at probiotics, there's two groups. There's healthy people who want to stay healthy, and there's people who have gotten out of sorts a little bit and want to get back to, you know, good health. If you're the athletic group and you're in good health and just want to stay healthy, a couple of weeks can be sufficient. For the other people, it can be 3 a day, 4 a day. So it depends on the individual so much, and you can't just say, well, this is what you need to do. You need to try some different things. Yeah, and it can be a little expensive. If you're talking good quality probiotics, they're going to be a little bit on the higher price side. But if you were to get together with a group of families in your neighborhood and say, let's try this. You buy this one, you buy that one, you buy this one, and then 10 days on one, switch it around, because usually they're 30 days. Then you switch bottles and just everybody tries a different probiotic. And you can then look at it and say, well, I did better with probiotic A. Well, I did better with probiotic B. Well, there you go. You figured it out for the price of one bottle, but you did it with some other people. And I just think that would be an easy way of doing it.
That's very interesting. That's really interesting. I like that. So master supplements have a variety. You have digestive enzymes. You have different levels of probiotics. Give us the names of your probiotics. Oh, and you have even combination, right? You have the combination of the probiotic as well as the enzyme in there.
Well, we have two parts of our digestive system after the stomach, basically, the small intestine and the large intestine. The large intestine is anaerobic, doesn't like oxygen. So you have a different group of bacteria that reside there than will reside in your small intestine. Typically, you look at lactobacillus for your small intestine, bifidobacteria for your colon. We have a probiotic that is only going to work in the colon. Oh, look who's coming up to say hello.
This is my daughter's dog, Yogi. Oh, Yogi, it's your candid time. Get down.
I love it.
Oh my God, you're going to knock everything over.
I love it.
Okay, sorry about that.
No problem. So we have one that works just in the colon, and that one we call true bifido. It's all bifidobacteria. We have one that works only in the small intestine. And this goes to that idea that we understand compatibilities. That one has Lactobacillus plantarum, and that probiotic organism is generally the one that is used to ferment foods. It'll ferment pickles. It'll turn cabbage into kombucha. It's one of those primary, very high lactic acid producers. We added 2 enzymes to that for the specific reason of trying to help people with problematic yeast issues. And then we have Theralac, that we call True Flora. Then we have Theralac. Theralac's got Lactobacillus and bifidobacteria, covers your entire GI tract, works on both sides of the immune system. It is the one that's going to give the most regularity. It's going to be greater for people with loose stools. True Flora is often one that's used more by people who have very firm stools, but you can take any of them and you can rotate around with all of them. They all have the same acid-proof delivery. They all, we have an ingredient we put in there, we call it Lactostim, which wakes them up. And so those are the bacteria.
Oh, okay. I didn't know.
Because remember how we first talked about how they're dropped in liquid nitrogen and the water is sucked out of them?
Okay.
At that point, they're very fragile, and this Lactostim reconstitutes their cell membrane so they can intake nutrients and output metabolites more quickly. So our products can work faster than anybody else and are actually pretty close to maximum output in 12 hours versus 24. And if you need the help, 12 hours is much faster to get help than 24 hours.
Yeah, a lot of people, especially on antibiotics, are having trouble with the yeast component. So say that again, which one
That's True Flora. It can help with
Flora.
yeast issues. The enzymes in there specifically go after the glucans and the beta glucans in the hyphae of yeast. So it's actually kind of like a clean, just actually physically degrading the organism. Then the lactic acid creates an environment it doesn't like.
Wonderful.
But one has to remember, a yeast is this big. A probiotic bacteria is tiny. If you're pushing a lot of yeast out, you got to take a lot of bacteria. We recommend you take the True Flora for a week and then Theralac the next week. So you do like a clean and recolonize, clean and recolonize.
Okay. All right. That's good. Actually, I just learned that.
And the enzyme.
And I'm writing it down.
Okay. Well, if anybody wants a book on different ways you can take the products, just reach out to you and we'll make sure we get it to them.
All right. So you have to make sure you get it to me.
And we have the enzyme we have is called enzylase.
Yes.
And we use the same sodium alginate there because enzymes can be partially denatured by stomach acid. We do the same thing there. And we call it Enzystim there, makes water wetter so enzymes can work more efficiently.
So you can make water wetter?
Yes.
Anybody
can do it at home.
Saltier?
No, but you can make water wetter. Take a waxy leaf on a plant and put a drop of water on it. And the water just beads and rolls right off. Put a little soap in the water and you put it on there and it sheets right out.
Oh
You've
boy.
Made water
now
wetter.
We have a science experiment I'm going to do.
Yeah. It's just what it does is just reduces the surface tension. That's what making water wetter is.
Wow.
You reduce the surface tension of the water by adding a little bit of soap to it.
Well, that is really, really neat. Oh my God, we have learned so much today. I want to thank you. I know. There was a show my kids used to watch. It was Bill Nye, the Science Guy. Yeah, remember him? Yeah. He did a lot of work and it was real fun to watch. Yeah.
Well, Captain Kangaroo did a lot of that for me.
Well, that's awesome. Awesome. I want to thank you for being a guest here. And again, I want to thank you for being such a good supporter of Living with Lyme, because without support, I can't do this. So
yeah.
For all of you out there, I hope that you are enjoying these podcasts. I hope that you are subscribing to the website, because that's how you'll help me get more support, as well as you'll get notification when new podcasts come up. And that would be www.livingwithlyme.us. And you'll also get some great recipes for some sugar-free and dairy-free snacks on there. So until next time, people, keep listening. Take good care.